well. I'm now muted. All right, good. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today on the Facility Management Launch Hour. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. And today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. I promise we're going to do this today. Okay, so here we are now muted. All right, good. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today. On the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. Definitely ready from. Today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. All of the. And so here we are now. Good functionality that you need to have. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today. On the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. Definitely ready from. Today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. All of the. And so here we are now. Good functionality that you need to have. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today on the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. Definitely ready from. Today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. All of the. And so here we are now. Good functionality that you need to have. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today on the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. Definitely ready from. Today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. All of the. And so here we are now. Good functionality that you need to have. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today on the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. Definitely ready from. Today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. All of the. And so here we are now. Good functionality that you need to have. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today on the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. Definitely ready from. Today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. All of the. And so here we are now. Good functionality that you need to have. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today on the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. Definitely ready from. Today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. All of the. And so here we are now. Good functionality that you need to have. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today on the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you had a good time with us last week when we did the Facility Management Information System. Definitely ready from. Today we're going to look at facility management and the building life cycle. All of the. And so here we are now. Good functionality that you need to have. Okay, so my name is Paul Erubami. It's another exciting time to be with you again today on the Facility Management Launch Hour. Operational readiness. I hope you
So you need to have these as a baseline. You also need to have information about your sites, addresses, the square footage, number and types of occupants, whether it's owned or leased, hours of operation, types of spaces, operations, customers that are being served. And you should also have full information about the services required. So we talk about the facility management spaces and services. The spaces need to be functional, but the services make spaces useful and functional to the users, right? So what services do they need? Do we need in these spaces? Which one is provided by a landlord? Which one do we need to carry, capture in our own FM delivery process? And then we need to have a data of our organizational trust people, right? So I can't be providing facility management. I don't know who I'm providing that facility management for, right? So I need to know who is in which position, what specific level they are operating at in the organization, what task they are delivering, how important is their role within the organization, what unique services or special requirements do they need to be able to meet the requirements of the organization. I need to understand, so many. I can't say what they're trying to achieve or what they expect, from the system. Then I need to be fully cost of running my facility. Sometimes we assume that because facility is so important an organization's business, every organization should be willing to spend whatever it takes to make facility run, right? That's a wrong assumption. Sometimes we can actually be in a way putting our position in dire straits by unnecessarily walking up our cost to the point where the position itself becomes unsustainable in profitability, right? So I need to have not just a full grasp of historical, current, and ongoing costs. I need to know, I have it from yet going forward. I need to have understanding of financial metrics, because I do business cases, I write business plans, I write propositions and proposals that will involve investment, that will involve spending in certain operational changes and activities, different types of contracts. I need to be able to drive down to the level of detail what exactly I am putting that money into. So it's not enough to know I spend 10 million for water production and distribution in my facility in a year. No, I should be able to drive those, the footfall for that facility. I need to be able to estimate, and know that cost driver affects the unit cost of metric, and this applies to electricity, provision of air conditioning and everything I provide in the facility. I need to know what key performance indicators will help me contribute to the organization, right? So I need to know, how my services are adding value to the organization at a very high level. So KPIs that track, my performance in facility management need to have in place. And if there are issues that requires, compliance, community issues and others, I need to document them. Now, why do I need to have all of this information? Because I can manage what I don't know. I can manage well if I don't understand the entire circumstances, mitigating factors around the work that I deliver, especially if I have made to understand the organization from a strategic point of view. I must also have information on all the other things that are going to affect how I'm going to deliver to meet the requirements of the organization. All right. So for ongoing facilities, if you already inheriting a facility that you already met someone managing before, and you need to take it over, don't just take the keys. Don't just go say, hey, where are the keys? Show me around. I know what to do from there. No, you need to have these documentation in place. Which vendors were working here before? What kind of contracts they have in place? I've seen some vendor contracts for services that are really not contracts. It's just like people writing some kind of gibberish in some paper just to get a signature signed. When they sign it, and the only thing that is clear in most of the contracts is how much you pay. Right? There's no clarity, there's no breakdown, there's no detail or specification, and there's always this argument, pally with the vendors. Now that they are taking over and you want to, bring in some level of strict performance, there's no basis for all these improvements you want to bring in because they were not even written in the form of like you need to have your lease agreement. If it's rented, the contact information of your landlord, financial data, historical, utility bills, for a long time, accounting requirements, IT requirements, additional charts, site information, including drawings, talk about the service level requirements of your users. You might inherit a property to run, and there are service levels in place between the FM and the vendors or the service providers. But you really don't know what the service level agreement is with the facility users, right? So if those don't exist, you need to work on that because there's no basis for having any contract in place when you don't already have a contract with those level agreements for internal use, right? So how the cleaning will be done, how the electrical maintenance, AC maintenance, water provision, and all of that to be done. I need to have a common understanding with my building users, documented, agreed to. It is based on that I now develop service level agreement that reflects what I've agreed with my in-house users, so that at the end of the day, I really want vendors coming in to serve, being able to serve and meet the expectation of my building users. So you need to know your equipment list. Talked about aspect in the previous slide. You need to know the maintenance records. You can't start maintaining something you don't know what the history is. I mean, if you go to the hospital to go and see a doctor, what you typically hear is, tell me this, tell me that, tell me that. That's if it's a new doctor, right? Just trying to get to know your story, get to hear, has it happened before, when did it happen the first time, and so on and so forth. What did you do to it? Who did you meet? And they ask you all those questions to get an idea of the paths that you have taken to this point. If it's a doctor that you used to work with before, you probably need to pull up a file, look at previous notes, look at your reaction to previous medications, and so many things. The same thing applies to managing a building. You cannot manage a building in a vacuum. You need to know exactly what's been happening before so that you don't repeat the mistakes. You need to learn what worked in the past so you can be able to reinforce those and things that did not work to not repeat them. Building rules and regulations, this has to do with, occupancy rules, things like how we relate with each other, community rules for estates and the rest. If they are there, you put them. If they are not there, you need to walk through the process of getting them in place. The permits that you need to have in place, key contact medicine numbers, incident reporting procedures. If there are none, you put some in place. Emergency response plans, business continuity requirements, fire life safety programs. All of these are things that needs to be put in place. I just want to, these are things that you need to know, be able to produce, and you work with as a professional facility manager. If right now you are a facility manager, in the business or in the career of FM, or someone, just coming in or thinking about it, I would strongly recommend that you consider joining the August batch of the Facility Management Mastercraft Diploma, where we have all of this content taught over a 3-month period with exercises, assignments, assessments, and a comprehensive exam, practical field trips. And then for those who are looking for work or, looking to upgrade themselves in terms of salaries and working in other organizations, we virtually enroll you into our talent management pool, where you can begin to be placed for internships, opportunities for jobs, and the right you're looking for very quickly. Okay, all of the content that we're using for the launch hour are all coming out of that program. So don't expect that after the launch hour you've seen the juice of what we are teaching in the FM Masterclass Diploma. We should also send it slides. It will almost be like you telling us that we don't know what we are doing, or we don't know why we're in business. Okay, so don't ask for the slides. Just enjoy the session. And if you really want the slides, the certificates, the proof that you are now a professional, please join us, for our FM Masterclass Diploma. And I think that will be the best you can do for yourself. We have provided so many opportunities now for everybody to join with no excuse. I don't have time in the evenings to join virtually. Come on Saturdays, that option is open. I don't have the full money. 450K is expensive for me. Pay in 2 installments, pay in 6 installments, pay in direct debits, and you are in the program. Okay, so we've made this. We've taken all the concerns we've heard from people about joining the FM plan in the last few years. Taking them off by making this flexible now. So please, just do yourself some good and join us in the program. So into today's life cycle, typically when buildings are thought of, a developer, an investor, a business owner, people in the C-suite, real estate manager or consultant, they think about a problem that needs a solution. They think about a need that needs to be met. They think about an opportunity that needs to be taken advantage of. And that, starts the whole planning process, where they conceive a location, they conceive the breadth, height, width, type of building, target customers, all of those high-level business things are done in the planning. At the time where they get in designers to come in, look into what needs to be done, carry out programming, come up with schematics and build all those detailed designs, go into construction, build the commission, and move it into operation. In the traditional model, this is something that they just do. This stage is done, we'll move to the next, we'll move to the next, we'll move to the next. What then happens is that it is only at the point when they are done with all of the building that you now remember that, oh, someone needs to operate it. So then let's go and look for the facility manager, right? We're trying to advocate for this model to be done away with so that we can move into another model that is iterative because of the problems that we see with that traditional model. If you involve the facility manager at the planning stage, involve the facility manager at the design stage, at the construction stage, testing, commissioning, handover, the facility manager becomes the lead at the operations stage, which is the facility management stage. you will find certain benefits. First, there will be a team working through the entire life cycle. The planning, the design, the construction, and the facilities team will find themselves working together one way or the other, either as a driver or as someone providing inputs into that stage, from stage to stage throughout the life cycle process. And that's the big deal about what facility management is bringing to the table. Ourselves, planning, when the owner is saying what he needs to do, when the planners, the consultants, the investors, they're still brainstorming on how big, what services, what are the customers, what location, what type of business are we going to allow, and so on and so forth in this facility. They're thinking of all that. Where does the FM come in? What are the, you see at there, the driver is the planners, which are the owners, and then you have input from construction and the FM team. What does the FM team bring in? Because if you look at the whole series from stage to stage, the FM is involved, needs to be having inputs at every stage, all the way to when the facility is going to hand over to him as the driver. So what do you think an FM contributes during the planning stage? First, the FM has the experience of the user. The FM also has the experience of the owner, right? So the owner's business requirements, profitability targets, sustainability, policies and procedures, triple bottom line goals, and the rest, you understand. The end user, their demographics, their behavioral patterns, how they use facilities, he has that. He also has a sense of the problems or the issues that is leading us to want to build a new place or expand what we have. Okay, so these are information. It's like he's the custodian of the reality, what's happening on ground. You can put together teams from different walks of life to come and use their theoretical knowledge, their academic abilities to help you develop all this concept that design. But without the FM's input, you might end up with certain mistakes. For example, it is the FM that knows the typical demographic, male, female, old, young populations for different target customer groups that you're trying to build for, right? And there are features, there are characteristics of how these demographics behave and use facilities, how they interact with the facilities that you need to know from the FM. You could wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to build a very high-tech, educational facility, and blah, blah, blah. You've talked about all the nice things you want to have because you saw something that's very beautiful in Chicago when you travel. But now, you are trying to do this in an environment where the people you are going to bring into your facility may not be as sophisticated as what you're looking at, right? So all of those touchless, IoT sensors, all of those eye scanner kind of assets and many things in your environment. You need someone who has that local environment. So even if you don't have a facility manager who has that experience, getting a facility management consultant into your planning team helps to bring knowledge, a varied set of knowledge from experience with other facilities that have been managed under his watch over the years. So that's why you need an FM in the planning stage. How much, how big, how well, how sophisticated you want to build, you need to have the information of the end user. You need to also have information on degradation curves. I know engineers, they like to kind of modeling degradation curves, where you say, this thing falls, reduces in value over so and so period, But the FM has experienced it. The FM consultant has experienced it firsthand. So all those maintainability factors that they build into your facility, linking more to the FM who has experienced it. He knows what blocks pipes, drain pipes in buildings. He knows how long it takes for certain materials to start, getting blocked as a drainage pipe for air conditioning. He knows when trees are over a building, fine for conservative or ecological reasons or sustainability reasons, which makes a lot of sense for temperature control. He knows the effect of dried, leaves on the roof and how they interact with roof gutters, right? And he knows when he tells you he doesn't want a 90-degree bend on a roof gutter drop down pipe. He knows what he's saying. He knows, all of those things. These are not things that you can simulate far enough in the future. So things that have to do with maintainability and sustainability, the FM brings them on board, and this information goes all the way to design. During design, you are supposed to have a programming. Programming is gathering data from end user, user requirements. You've taken owner requirements, investors, and all of those from the planning stage. You need to spend time understanding exactly what roles, what opportunities, what kind of people, the demographics that you need to set this facility up for. And as you are learning this, you are getting to know from the facility manager, the different unique features of requirements of different, types of users. The mailroom versus the newsroom, for example, the reception versus the library, the study, different requirements. The FM understands all of this. So even if you are unable to do a programming where you actually meet all the end users, to plan and observe and gather data on their space requirements, just having an FM on board can help you, receive some of that information through the design stage. And then things like access areas. Sometimes you want to beautify. I know how it is when you're designing. You want the place to be, top notch. You want to cover everything up. You want to make sure that it's very fine. It's FM understands that, and FM on team during design will be the one to advise you where to put the inspection chambers, the manholes, the access points, the ventilation shafts. How wide setting spaces. Of course, you could have used your data or book to go through and come up with those spaces to design. But when it comes to the reality of what happens on the field, you need to ask someone who is really into it. You need to be there. You need to look at it and say, look, this looks nice, but over time, we're going to experience slippery surfaces here. We're going to experience, certain rusting metal at this point. This material may not work for this, and so on and so forth. He guides, he advises. It's during design too that you have the project management plan, developed for construction project. You have the contracts being put in place and all of that, right? The FM also helps, look at areas where quality assurance and quality control need to be written into all of this. I know how you have a contract and you think the contract is now obliged to do all of those nice things the FM needs. No, if you don't write in quality assurance task items that the controller will not price. For example, you require certain reports. You need to be sure that those reports are written in. You need to acquire certain permits that the FM would need to run facilities later. You need to put in line items for those. The FM looks through the contract document to ensure that it covers the requirements of the owner, and it also meets his long-term maintainability and sustainability goals and expectations, right? All of that is done during the design. When you get to the construction phases, you're going to be dealing with a lot of variations. Because during design, even with the FM being on board or the FM consultant being part of the consulting team during design, when you now hit the ground running, your project management plan is in front of you. You have materials to acquire. You factor in all the lead times and so on and so forth, right? By the time you start acquiring materials, start bringing in professionals to come into work, is that things might not be exactly how it was planned. So you need to have, certain changes, on the spur of the moment, site meetings to review, make adjustments to scope, to schedule, and so on and so forth. The FM's job in this whole, management of change control, that, when you put in management of change control into a contract, doing execution is a different ballgame. There will be this likelihood of professionals involved in it being complicit, being, working with each other to make things easy for each other at the detriment of the owner and the end user. By the way, if you pay the contractor a milestone, you pay the consultants who are supervising him as well their own milestone for consulting and supervision. So it's not in their interest to frustrate the contractor, right? So at some point, especially bathing, to collaborate and aspire with reports and write-ups. But if you don't have someone whose only interest is to ensure that we do not save today's cost for future, today's little cost for future and spend future higher, or we do not, out of the convenience of doing it quickly now, we end up creating a situation that will require operational nightmare for the operations and maintenance in the future. A case in point is, we didn't factor in a ledge or a base for outdoor units of air conditioning system across the entire high rise. So there's no point that has access, from the main building where somebody can go in and service the outdoor units. And then they just, let's just agree and put brackets to hang all of these ACs. It sounds like a very easy, it's okay, just mount them all there. There's no need to worry about those, ledges where someone could easily access them. Somebody should be in that team that is thinking about, okay, so how does my technician get to this 11th floor AC that is hanging right outside the window on the 11th floor on the wall of this external wall of this building, right? It's thinking about that. Someone who is all the lights we're installing at those heights, where we access them, to change light bulbs and stuff. What, right? Can we bring in our lift equipment into this kind of floor, because it looks like we are putting some very expensive carpets on the ground, and things like that. So we are thinking about all of those long-term operational issues. And then when it comes to testing, commissioning, implementation, the FM becomes custodian of those documentation, so that nothing is being done and being arranged in a way that no longer be retrievable later, because that's what normally happens. Once construction is over, nobody goes back to try to catalog those documentation we'll be talking about, and nobody really, sees beyond that. We are done, can see the nice edifice we have created for you, give us praise, shake our hands, pay us, and let us out of it. Right? Don't want to come back to us. So what do you do? An FM consultant as part of the consulting team, whose major interest is make sure that all changes are implemented across board. So if there's a change that is going to affect the drawing, update it in the drawing so that the new drawing is proper, right? If there's a change that's going to affect the specification that you agreed before during design, when construction now change, you go to a bill of quantities and you update it. And then you keep documenting all of those things all the way to testing documentation, all those testing, and by the way, what is testing? You are trying to check that the equipment functions, that it works. It works, and your checks are against certain operating parameters. If something is running or working well, it has to use certain range of current, voltage, vibration, sound level, and so on and so forth. Just checking that everything is within the range, acceptable or prescribed range by the for that system. Now, when you're not doing commissioning, it goes beyond a focus on the assets. It now goes into a focus on the users. The original purpose for which that space was created, for which that equipment was installed, is what you are doing during commission. You are now documenting adequacy. Is it meeting the needs? So in essence, testing can be done, without load, but commissioning cannot be done without load. You need to put it under stress and under use and document what the experiences that you get from it is. Is that documentation that we call commissioning? It's important because An FM's job is almost perpetually a commissioner's job, because every time you're using a building, if it's adequate for the tension or for the users, you are always happy that the facility is meeting their requirements. If it is not, you are always having, to deal with, adjustments, retuning, fine-tuning, upgrading, overhauling, reinstallation of new items, just to make sure. So basically, your job is a continuous commissioning business. You're always checking to ask, getting the best out of it, and that's your business on an ongoing basis. So the question that comes out of testing and commissioning should be something you hold close to you, because when the facility is now being put under, use and stress and all of the other wear and tear, you need to be able to see how the degradation is happening from when it was once adequate to how it became inadequate over time. What changes you will do to boost it back to the level of adequacy that it needs? What improvements you need to put in place to have your customer satisfaction to a certain percentage that has been preset, right? That you've determined as an additional requirement of benchmark. All of that work starts with a baseline that were handed over or you were part of during the commissioning stage. And then handover is not here the bill to be compared, the keys. That's not handover. Handover is documentation. Every document that has been generated from the planning stage, from the design stage, from the construction stage, from the testing stage, commissioning stage, all of them organized in the form of those FM information system line items we started with today, as well as all the other information we looked at in the other two slides. They are all needed to be handed over, properly cataloged, so that the FM has everything it needs to manage the facility. That's what handover is about. And then you get into facility management proper. So that's, in a nutshell, is what it means to, to go through that development cycle. So I'm just going to use this one slide to talk through that generated. So there's a brief that comes out from the planning. This brief goes to the architects and all the engineers, consulting engineers that form the design group, right? This group look at the brief, interpret it into drawings, and the drawings include architectural drawings, structural civil drawings, electrical drawings, electronics drawings, plumbing, air conditioning, and so on and so forth. And then they also produce the bills of quantities, which carries the specifications of materials and quantities of those materials that are going to go into the construction. From this stage, they now use those information to build a contract. So the bill of quantities come in the drawing, and they use that to develop some kind of coalition with which bidders will bid to come and build. And when the contract is finally awarded, a project management plan is developed. So think about the documents again: a brief from the planning, drawings in all the ramifications, the bills of quantities, the contract, and the project management plan. All of this moves into the construction phase, where you now start having, the drawings blown up into construction drawings and details that are being produced to show work methods and material details. You see the as built and those drawings, when there are changes or variations or any kind of alteration to the plans during construction, those changes are now updated in another set of drawings. So you go from design drawings to construction drawings to as built drawings, right? From the design of quantities to the contracts down to as built bill of quantities. Because when you have built, you need to now document exactly what details change, so that what we are having at the end of that process is the as-built, the reality, no changes. You don't just carry the drawings and change the label of the drawing. No, you do a fresh measurement. You do a fresh, quantities based on the changes that have been approved. And then all of those information goes into testing. You have testing templates. I've been in some purported testing site operations where consultants and the contractors are going around and switching things on and off and calling it testing. That's not testing. Testing is not for observation. Testing is for documentation. There is a testing template for everything produced by the design consultants that it goes to the constructible at the end. So because these are like checklists, where you have already put success criteria, you've already put operating parameters, ranges for everything. It's already put in there. So when you're going to test, you take a line, just like you go to do your medical tests. You go to the hospital for medical tests, and the doctor, wants to check your blood, for example. When he does any test, there's always a normal, a healthy benchmark, minimum and upper limits, right? So when your own result comes, it checks it against that upper and lower limit of ideal. And then if it falls within, he gives interpretation. If it falls outside, he gives interpretation. There's a documentation, he signs it. That's how building testing should take place. Not see it's working, the light is on, put it off and see if it's off. Put it on and see whether the noise will be too loud. No, that's okay. It's documentation. And all care for the effort to use for. Same with commissioning. Commissioning may not be possible in all cases. You have an estate of 200 units. When they say they are doing commissioning of the power system, there are just 20 occupants or 30 occupants. You don't have enough load to actually commission such a generator. So if you do have the means of getting a power bank in, to come and load it with some resistance or resistivity, so that when you power the generator, that rated resistance or resistivity will be what the generator is trying to overcome, as if it's responding to load. And you see how the generator responds to it over a set period. You can now say, okay, yes, we can sign off as commission. But if not, as the load increases, documenting the experiences, the failure point, change you are in, the load as it gets into its required peak. So that's what we call continuous commissioning process. And at some point in the life of an asset, you probably didn't commission it at the beginning, but it's lasted this long. You now need to do an overhaul or an upgrade, replacement of parts. Then you can now do a commissioning at that point, where you now document the output to adequacy at that point. That's another term we call retro commissioning. So this can be possible at the beginning, can be something that the FM has to deal with on an ongoing basis. We talked extensively at handover about handover. Everything we talked about in the previous stages, all those documentations is what you need to have at handover, all in a retrieval system that helps you use them in the future. And then the final stage, when it goes into facility management, there's a lot to do at the facility management stage. You need to decide on the maintenance strategy for each of the assets, create a maintenance schedule, have a budget in place, have staffing requirements, specification for each of those, decide on contracting strategy, whether you're going to insource or outsource, develop service level agreements with the users, and then develop service level agreements with the vendors and the FM departments, develop community rules, develop processes for all activities, inspection processes, maintenance processes, and so on and so forth. Deploy technology when you need to deploy technology, and all of this goes on and on till the facility, which is life. Every facility has its end of life. That end of life might come for different components of the facility at different times. So there's really not one end of life. For example, plumbing installation in the facility might be a 15 to 20 years installation, right? Whereas the structure might be a 70 to 100 years installation. The roof might be a 40 to 45-year installation. So as facility managers, we must know what those estimated useful life of assets are, so that you create a capital replacement, a capital improvement, capital upgrade, and obsolescence plan for each item. So you have the whole of the assets listed, and you're giving them their useful life, and then you can now, if you can create columns of every year, you can now put in, at this year we're going to do the roof, at that year we're going to do the interlocking tiles, at that year we're going to look at mechanical systems in the air conditioning unit, we're going to look at the plumbing at so here, we're going to replace street lights. You just go on and create all of those. When you set up what we call sinking funds or capital asset replacement funds in estates, for example, you don't just come and throw that number. Oh, let's be paying 50,000 a month for a sinking fund. There's so much guesswork related to it that when the chips are now down for us to start doing some of those things, we don't even have the means to invest in them, and that can become a big challenge. We start talking about how do we raise extra money, and just ask you questions. Well, I'm the owner. I'm the tenant. Those questions. Point need to have that long-term plan. So as you are dealing with your tactical plans, your budget, your operations and maintenance plans, and your project long-term plan that draws from your strategic facility plan, which is your capital asset replacement plan. It's based on those, you can now know exactly where the funds need to be built up to. That's why it's not when you need to do a particular capital project, that's when you now ask for that money. No, that money would have been built up. There will be a few years where you're not going to do any of those capital projects. So the money is being built up for that year when you're going to implement it. So there will be a kind of a stability, the amount you agreed upon, the investment program to put that money into that will lead to having that resource or that fund at the time you need it needs to also be considered where you're making that plan. So that's where I'm going to stop today so that I can take questions. I would like to know what questions you have. If you have a question, you can put it on the chat. If you want to ask by voice, you can raise your hand. I think you have the raise hand tool on Telegram. For the team, if you have questions from people in other platforms, what you can do for me now is drop it on the Telegram group so that I will know that. Just copy paste the question on the Telegram group right now and say a certain Felix is asking, right? You put the question. A certain Nosa is asking for the question, so I can quickly deal with it while we're in the question and answer session. I hope these have been useful to you. I hope we have people who are benefiting from this right now. So when we commit to giving, back and meeting the education needs and the mentoring of our constituents, in the industry, we expect, something in return. We expect some, testimonials on social media that tags us. We expect some, ratings and 5-star ratings on Google My Business, on our social media platforms, follow-ups, connect. We also expect you subscribe to our channels and also invite others to join our channels so that our reach can be more. Because the moment you join our channel, some of the people in your own network begin to see that you are participating and of additional here. So if there are no particular questions about this topic, you can ask questions about any topic. I still have 7 minutes to leave this open. And if you have any questions, please drop them now. We asked in our first session, almost a month ago, that if you want solutions to any topic in the built environment, drop it here, and we'll put it in the log into the log of topics that we'll be using to come to you every Thursday, so that you can have it covered.
Hello, sir. Please, I have a question. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is asset life cycle. That is, you said each building can have different asset life cycle depending on the components. Who comes up with this? Would I call it the specification sheet? Yeah. Who comes up with it? It's not the facility manager. Is it the contractor or the vendors, or who comes up with that sheet?
Okay, so ideally there are a few ways to come about that information, and I need to stress that accuracy is not the important thing. The important thing is that planning is taking place, right? The first is manufacturer's recommendation. For some assets, manufacturers will indicate useful life. For some, they may not directly say the useful life. They may give you a hint, like after 10,000 hours in a generator, overhaul it, right? That is a hint that you should set 10,000 hours as your useful life, because at that point, you are being told what you expect. That's why it says you overhaul it. So information from manufacturers. And that source of that information is from your own experience. When you use assets over the years, especially when you're having a maintenance record being put in place, and you can use data like mean time between failures. When an asset is new and still very functional, the mean time between failure is very wide, right? So you don't have failures more than once a year, for example. But when you now begin to get to when the failures are almost monthly, you can look at that data and say, from when it was not failing so frequently to when it started failing frequently, how many years were those? I can use that to set my useful life. And then I can also use my own experience with certain areas, because the gradation of materials and building components will differ by climatic conditions and interference with nature as well. Some salty air environment around some seaward areas, you will see a lot of corrosion happening to roofing sheets, to air conditioning units, to window panes, and the rest. You will see that corrosion happening faster in those areas than other areas. So why I can put air conditioning units in certain areas in Lagos, for example, maybe I'm looking at Ojodo, Ikorodu, or maybe areas in Ikeja at 15 years for a split unit. I probably will put for some areas on the right side of the Lekki as the seaward area. I probably will put that same air conditioner I'm buying the same day for a 7-year tenure, because I know that corrosion and other attacks, even with my best maintenance efforts, will not allow it to serve as long. So I'm going to use my own experience. Apart from the data, I'm also going to use my own experience, my own judgment of the difference between different areas. Then I'm also going to look at information available from benchmark studies. It's not very common around them. There are benchmark studies that have been done on all kinds of assets, block work, steel structures, how long they typically have lasted over the years. That will give you indication of some of this useful life. And then, other sources, at the end of the day, what you estimate as a useful life is not cast in stone. You just use that tool as a forecasting tool, that document as a forecasting document. When it is time, let's assume I put in that air conditioning unit, for example, for 7 years. When it is 7 years or when it's 6 years and I'm planning my capital replacement plan for the next year, which is the 7th year, I go do an inspection. If I see that iteration is really much and that this thing might, really need to be replaced next year, I leave it at that 7 years. At the end of 7 years, I'll put in my capital plan for capital budget for that year for its replacement. But if I look at it and like, this thing looks like it's been well protected, maybe because we have trees around us, some other reasons have made it to look good, and I can estimate another 3 years just by looking at it at the 6th year. I can change that 7 years to 9 years. So that's why I say it's not set in stone. The important thing is that you don't leave your asset to suddenly fail, and you don't have a way of, prepping your management for those investments that are going to come in the future, or the building owners for those investments that are going to come in the future. An investment can be defeated because the asset is still usable. Sometimes you may actually speed it up because the asset has generated faster than you estimated, okay? But your level of accuracy will get better and better as you continuously use this tool to plan for capital replacements.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. By the way, what's your name?
It's Adiola.
Adiola, welcome. All right. All right. So I think that's all we'll be able to take in questions for today. I look forward to seeing you again next week for the lunch hour, Thursday by 1. Please try and invite your friends, invite your colleagues, invite everybody to be here. The way this kind of program can be sustained is if I can see that I'm making an impact, if I can see that people are many that are participating, okay? So if you want to see this continue perpetually, get the numbers in here. It's very important that we talk to as many people as possible, because the kind of positive change we want to make in our industry is not going to happen if we keep talking to a small number of people going forward, right? So we need to expand our reach. Expand our reach to involve our bosses, to involve our customers and clients. Expand our reach to involve all those in allied professions. People who are not really thinking about facility management, for example, accountants, business manager, business development people. Get all of them here. 1 hour, every week is only going to whet their appetite, but it's going to open their minds to the kind of things that you are bringing forward to the table. See the value of your role as an FM, and also help them provide you with the resources you need to give those strategic support to your organization. So until next week, I say thank you very much and have a good day and a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes.